Without further delay, over to you, Sneha.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you're logging in from. And a very happy Onam for all of you celebrating. And just a disclaimer, I'm fostering 3 puppies and I have one of my own. So they're all like whining and doing something. So apologize for any distractions that may cause during this talk. So I'm going to start presenting my screen now. So in today's talk, we'll be talking about things to do before you actually set up continuous testing, a mini checklist that you can take a look at. So before we actually move on to that, let's briefly take a look at what really is DevOps and why it actually became so widely accepted in majority of the tech companies, right? So if you really look at it, DevOps is more like a culture along with a set of processes that really brings the development and the operations teams together. So as the software becomes more and more complex, along with the complexity, the risk of the failure also increases for us, right? So to keep up with the users and the business demands, we need to have a fast release cycle without really neglecting the quality of the code. So the DevOps pipeline really helps with releasing faster code. And to make sure that we're releasing high quality code, we need to integrate the continuous testing aspect of it in the pipeline. So one of the items to really accomplish to win in the DevOps game is to implement continuous testing. So that brings us to the next point of what really is continuous testing. Now, many business leaders believe that the cost of their testing can be optimized using test automation. So to be competitive, a business needs an ability to release high quality software anytime. So testing requirements quite often are the bottleneck for, the quicker release cycles in most cases. So the goal of continuous testing is to provide continuous and rapid feedback regarding the level of the business risk in the latest build or in the release candidate that is in hand. So what that means is early detection of defects, faster release cycles, faster use of time, improve code quality, right? So the continuous testing aspect of it combines the process side of things using automation, the technology side of things, making it more efficient, and the people side of things with a better mindset. Mindset in the sense, the way we talk about it also changes because testing is not just a step at that point. It is an overall approach where we see if the release candidate is having an acceptable level of business risk or not, right? And a lot of times, right, a lot of people think just because they have automated tests does not mean they're ready for continuous testing. They get confused between automated tests and continuous testing. So automated tests and continuous testing are not the same. Yes, it is true that continuous testing cannot happen without automated tests, but having automated tests alone is not enough to start the continuous testing journey. The test automation is usually designed to produce like a pass or fail result based on the stories or based on the requirement that we are testing. Whereas in continuous testing, it focuses on the business risk and provides insight on whether the software can be released or not, right? So it's not just the automated test. There's a lot of work that goes on the backstage to make it a mature continuous testing process. So fine, automated tests are not really continuous testing. So what needs to be modified to really make that continuous testing, right? That is the question that pops up. So DevOps cannot be successful without getting the basics right at all. Continuous testing is mostly the goal for most companies when it comes to achieving faster speed and great quality with higher degree of frequency. But imagine you have done all the right things you think are needed to speed up the implementation of code and also the delivery process, right? To speed up the delivery process. But then now imagine you spent all the big bucks on automation and invested in DevOps and followed Agile. And despite all of your efforts, if your tests are slowing down the builds considerably, being flaky, having environment issues, and worst, if no one is trusting your test, then what's the point of really having it, right? So that is why now we will discuss the checklist that one should consider even before implementing continuous testing to make sure that the implementation of continuous testing provides a positive and a very high quality experience for us. So the first step into that process is defining the business expectations, right? So there is no one size fits all solution when it comes to this. We need to work according to the project that is at hand. The business expectations associated with that application needs to be defined for its own. So when those are defined, then we are able to use them very effectively as we need. So the team ownership, team collaboration, support from the executive leadership, these are all factors that lead to success in continuous testing. So to include all the SDLC stakeholders into the continuous testing journey is a major step. So find a better way to communicate and collaborate on the requirements, include the requirements engineering team into your continuous testing initiative if need be, because the smoother the continuous testing journey will be, because team members work with the same understanding from the beginning of the process, and that will lead to a definite operational efficiency as well in the end. So the main point here is to communicate with stakeholders and set the expectations right in the beginning itself. The next point is have a defect analysis strategy. So when we find defects associated with those business risks, how are we going to evaluate the defects compared to the risks associated with them, right? Excuse me. How do we prioritize them? Once we understand what errors have been injected, do we have a strategy for isolating the defects at any particular point in time? Are we categorizing the priority so they just don't slip away? So when we do that, then there are some trends associated with the defects that are found, right? So do we have plans to use this feedback for defect prevention in the future? Do we have any distinct ownership associated with the workflow? So today, when a potential defect is found, we go through a hugely iterative process associated with, can you recreate it? Can you define it? So we really have a very distinct and clear path for ownership and remediation. Is that the case? So these are all some questions that can be discussed when it comes to figuring out the defect analysis strategy for after we have continuous testing put in place. So the next point would be test maintenance strategy. With DevOps, there are some specific demands on the tester, right, in the team when it comes to continuous testing. It impacts how we do test planning, how we do regression, how we do test maintenance, because DevOps speeds up the release of new features, but without strategy for continuous testing and test maintenance, it cannot work because we need to get the basics right. First, we need to develop new test cases for each feature as needed. Second, we need to do regression, and that is only possible with automation. And third, we need to do the test maintenance. And then we also have to decide, what the team structure is going to look like. How many testers do we need to complete all the testing for that particular release that we want to test it, we want to automate it, and we want to do regression? There are so many things that need to be done, right? So this is some planning that we need to do. In order for the tester to not become the bottleneck, we really need to have a strategy for these things already in place, built in our team. So that is something that needs to be discussed, and we need to have a solid plan in place for that. The next point is the test environment. So virtualizing the test environments seems to be the next big thing, right, to remove the bottleneck around test environment issues in continuous testing. According to the Sojeti 2019 continuous testing report, test environments are one of the biggest bottlenecks to achieving continuous testing, right? The survey revealed that the most amount of time that organizations spent on test environment management as some of the key challenge areas. So continuous testing means testing more frequently, right? That means hitting multiple environments more frequently. And that represents a problem because it becomes a bottleneck if those environments are not really available all the time due to the different reasons. There could be a number of reasons, like the amount of reasons like, maybe limited control over data or performance issues, and how to coordinate testing through multiple environment owners that may not always keep their environments up and running for you to test against it, right? So these are some of the challenges that one may face with regards to test environment. So mock services really help in those environments where it allows us to test code without having to worry that the areas are not changing. And along with that, virtualization, containerization, and tool-based automation are also strengthening in companies to meet the demands of Agile and DevOps with regards to test environment. So the point of discussion here would be, right, what is your plan to handle test environments? Do you have a proper strategy in place so that you're not dependent on moving parts that could arise some challenges? And then the next point is the test data management. Automate the process of preparing the data. So, having production like data in your test environment is now kind of needed more than ever because almost everything is automated. So having the right data and the appropriate diversity of data for doing all kinds of testing for all kinds of scenario like positive and negative scenarios, all of this is very important. And that is why having a plan for data generation early on in the pipeline is the way to go to achieve continuous testing with the highest level of confidence when it comes to are we testing with the right test data? Is something going to mess up when we go in production? Also, the DBAs could also be at the risk of becoming bottlenecks if we depend on them later in the pipeline. And most companies, right, we cannot just bring data from the production due to security and regulatory and compliance reasons. So we really need to condition the test data and provision it and at the speed and at the speed and the application that the application pipeline requires. So the point that we're trying to make here is, what is your strategy for the test data management? And then let's talk about, so these are all points, right? These are all things to keep in mind. The road to continuous testing is more like a journey. It's not really a destination that, you do this, and you're done. You're going to reiterate, you're going to take one step at a time, and you're going to finally reach there. And even after you reach there, there's going to be something new that's going to make it even more efficient that you're going to keep adding. So there's a lot of advantages to having continuous testing. So it basically puts the idea of, testing better in line with the business, and it helps in delivering information, in which the business can make a better trade-off decision associated with an application. So understanding the business, understanding the true objective associated with the application that you are working on. It helps, to understand the users, understand the end users experience associated with the application that you're working on. And there are so many more benefits of, continuous testing. In my opinion, right, let's talk about the role of the software tester in this continuous testing journey. In my opinion, I think this is the best time to be in the field of software testing. Like, we are in this era right now, where quality matters more than anything. And we have to redefine how we are going to achieve that level of quality to reduce risk. Now with continuous testing and all of this added to the pipeline, software testers have a say in things. Software testers now have the opportunity to really understand the business objectives and apply our knowledge to a process, not just knowing the product in and out. It's also to understand the product, the technical side of the product, to understand our end users, to understand the business objectives, and to apply our knowledge also in the process side of things, right? So we are really involved in a lot of phases right now with the way things are moving in the testing and the DevOps and software operations world, if I can say like that. So as there is a demand for faster and more, we need to kind of influence that process in order to show that we reduce the risk of the business. So in my opinion, that is why I think this is the best time in history, I can say, that this is the best time to be a software tester and to be in the field of software testing. So yeah, that is all I had today. These are my contact information. I know that we don't have too much time today. Sorry for all the technical glitches that happened. If you would like to ask me any questions apart from here, if there's not enough time, you can always contact me on LinkedIn. And this is my website and this is my Twitter handle. Thank you so much. Sai, over to you.
Thank you, Sneha, for sharing your experience with us today. It was really great. And folks, please rate the session using the poll button on the right. So you click on the poll, so you're going to get some options there. Please go ahead for that. And So if you want to look out what's happening next, so click on the stage button and see what's coming up next. So we have the speakers Q&A happening in three different rooms. So please do join there. And you can also catch up Sneha in your lounge around. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Thank you.